we have a very special guest joining us via Skype, and it's Amy Hull Brown. Amy is the owner and creator of a wonderful site called wellamy.com. But Amy is going to be talking with us about a nonprofit organization that she has formed called Amy's Wishing Well. So, Amy, tell us about Amy's Wishing Well is about hidden allergies, and your slogan of no more allergies, this grant program, hidden allergies, are they a problem? Tell us about that, and what do you mean by hidden allergies?
So again, kind of my basis for founding Well Amy, as well as the Amy's Wishing Well, was trying to pay it forward. We started down this journey about 5 years ago, and my sons are basically recovered at this point. And so when I went back to look at the different treatments that we did that were actually most helpful for really recovering them, I found that a lot of them were treatments that weren't necessarily available, either because, limited number of practitioners that could do the treatment, or simply it wasn't covered by insurance, an obstacle that many of us have to face. So I found if I could create this foundation and again give access to other families to try some of the treatments that we give with our kids, hopefully it would, it'd make a big difference for them as well. And one of my two sons, I would say, especially for one of them, this was like the treatment that really made the biggest difference. And it was kind of finding these hidden allergies. So I'll tell you what that means.
Yeah, tell us.
So my sons, they never really presented as if they had allergies. They definitely were not the kids where if you did the scratch test, anything would appear on the skin. And so our first trek down this path was the IgG blood test, which, most of us have done. And it definitely identified kind of the big things, the gluten, the dairy, the soy. And we made those dietary changes and, of course, saw progress. But I always felt like there was something that was missing. And we were trying a lot of different supplements and having more negative reactions than positive. And so I felt like, maybe there are ingredients in those supplements that somehow, are affecting them. So then we kind of went even further down that alternative path and tried like muscle testing. And the muscle testing showed some things, but it still wasn't showing everything we needed to find. So ultimately, we found a naturopathic doctor up in Connecticut who was able to do a very specialized testing for what I call kind of the hidden allergies. They're allergies that actually a lot of our kids have, or I should say, sensitivities that a lot of our kids have that will never show up in blood work or maybe even muscle testing. So have I piqued your interest?
Yeah. So if it's not going to show up in the blood test, and then how do we know it's there? How do we know?
Well, so the type of testing he does is what I'll call more energetic testing. Okay. And again, I'm not the expert, so I'm probably not explaining this as well as he would. But basically, it's a type of allergy testing that actually is pretty common in other countries around the world. It's just not that common in the U.S.
Okay.
So they use something called electrodermal screening, which just means that on our fingers and toes are different meridian points. So if you know like about acupuncture, there's different points that relate to different parts of the body. And there happens to be a point on one of our fingers that relates to allergies.
Okay.
So he's able to take this probe, it almost looks like a ballpoint pen, and it puts like a little electric current. You don't feel it, but it puts enough of an electric current on that point that it's able to see what type of energetic charge comes back.
Okay.
And so this has been particularly helpful for something called phenolic testing.
Yeah, tell me what that is.
So I'm not the chemist, definitely not a biology major. But a phenolic is just some kind of like six-sided carbon molecule that's just commonly found in food.
Okay.
And you may have heard like salicylates, phenolics, or like.
And we hear things are high in phenols.
Exactly. Okay. And that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
So he's actually testing specifically for those phenols.
Okay.
And to give you an example, one of my sons was very sensitive to a phenol called Malvin. Again, something we've probably never heard of. But Malvin is like that molecule that actually makes fruits and vegetables red, blue, or purple. So for example, we would do allergy testing, and the IgG would show apples are fine. Muscle testing would show apples are fine. But what this showed was that actually a red apple would be a problem, whereas a green apple or yellow apple was fine.
Interesting.
And so when they're able to do the testing and kind of get a little bit more specific on what exactly in the food is causing the problem, they're then able to take that same phenol or allergen and actually put it into like a drop solution. So it tastes just like water.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever had like your traditional allergies where they give you an allergy shot,
yeah,
the idea is they actually take what you're allergic to and they kind of inject it into your bloodstream.
Yeah, in a small amount so that you build up an immunity to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is what they're doing with the phenols, but they're doing it in your mouth, under your tongue.
Okay.
So it's great. There's no needles, which none of us really like needles.
Right.
Very easy to administer because, like I said, for the kids, it tastes just like water. And they're able to identify which foods to remove. And for 6 months, you take the drops. Every month, they kind of build up the amount of that phenol that's in the drops. And basically, after 6 months, you're able to add the foods back, and you don't have the allergic reactions.
Okay,
So,
because your body has built the immunity to it in an appropriate way instead of being bombarded by it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I will give you a real life story of how this affected our kids. So my son, who I said this was really transformational for him, he wasn't really social before we started this protocol. And we were into it for a couple of months. And my husband and I are at dinner one night, and all of a sudden he starts telling us about this kid, Oliver, in his class and this conversation that they're having. And you have to realize my son was probably about 8 or 9 at the time. And my husband and I looking at each other like, oh my gosh, we've never heard him mention another kid's name before.
Wow.
And just like out of nowhere, came this kid Oliver's name. and I was like, oh my gosh, was it the strawberries? Like, was it actually the food that was causing the problem? And so at that moment, I was like, this is amazing. And I've worked with practitioners who've sent, hundreds, if not 1,000 kids up to these doctors. And they all come back, again, very remarkable, recovery stories that come from going through this protocol. And I really think these kind of hidden allergies are what kind of prevents some of our kids from getting to that next level of recovery.
Absolutely. I'm somebody who's very allergic, and as is my whole family. And I know when I'm eating things that I'm allergic to, I'm not a happy camper all the way around. And sometimes I don't even realize that that's what's going on. I can't eat anything with wheat, and if I do, I'm inconsolably unhappy. So I can't imagine, and I'm an adult who, has some ability to communicate, and in that moment, I just don't feel well, and I can't communicate. I don't feel well. I'm just unhappy. I can't imagine what it would be like being a child who doesn't already have the ability to communicate and feeling like that, and then being expected to learn and grow feeling like that. It would be like the seventh ring of you-know-what. So you're particularly sensitive to this plight of families that have these hidden allergies, and you created this Amy's Wishing Well. What does the Wishing Well do?
So I said it's basically a 6-month program. And what the Wishing Well does is we basically pay for the entire 6-month program.
It's amazing.
So we pay for the testing, we pay for the consultations with the doctor, and you'll have a consultation once a month where they'll retest to see kind of where the points are. We also offer a health coach that will work with the families in the beginning and at the end to help them doing that transition and making dietary changes. It's easy to say, oh, you can't have this, this, and this in your diet, but then it's hard going home and saying, okay, and where do I begin? So the health coach is there to make that transition much easier for them. We pay for the drops, and to the extent we have other resources to either give discounts for food or just, again, we have other programs that we're looking at that kind of give you recipes when you need to be free of certain ingredients. Again, we make the whole 6-month program free to the grantees.
Well, that is amazing. And so I imagine that there's a process to apply, and that you probably have many people who, I'm sure that there are people who are watching who go, okay, this is a godsend, that they would like to apply. Let's talk first about how would they apply.
So go to amyswishingwell.org, and under the No More Allergies grant program, there's just a very quick place where you fill out, the applicant's name. Again, here is a child, so the parent's name, and just briefly, what are their health issues. And then at the end of June, we'll be collecting all the names and then sending out the actual application.
Okay.
So hopefully the next round of grant recipients will start their program mid-July, beginning of August, but definitely before the end of the summer.
Okay. And then how do you pick who, because I know you're going to get more people that will apply than there is funding available on Earth. So what criteria do you use to pick who you'll be? Because, I know people always want to know, well, what are you looking for?
And the one thing I will tell you, a lot of the grant programs are really based on a financial need. So if you're making under a certain income, they're available to you. But quite frankly, I find that so many middle income families who don't have access to a lot of these grants are just as needy.
Yes.
And this particular program, because if you had to do it out of pocket, can be very expensive. We basically don't use financial criteria as part of our evaluation.
Okay.
So that's hopefully a relief for many people. But basically, we just want to know that you're really committed to making the dietary changes and sticking with the program for 6 months.
Yeah.
So there'll be some essays in the application that just kind of enable you to demonstrate, your desire and your ability to really see it through, and how much you feel like this could really impact your child.
I think that that's great, because there are people out there who are desperate, who want to do whatever it takes to help their child, and they're willing to make big changes. But as you said, it's financially outside of their reach, and it's not because they're, not working and trying. It's, we're in a tough economy. But and then there are other people who are honest about it, and no judgments, who say, I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready to commit to GFCF. I'm not ready to do these other things. I know I'm a parent I'm willing to do dietary things, but biomedically I move slower than molasses in January uphill, and I know that about myself. So I love that that's the criteria that you're saying, we're willing to fund for some people to do this, but you need to be ready to make the commitment.
Exactly. And the nice thing is, so there's 2 doctors that will start the program with us. They're both in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. But the nice thing is, you don't have to physically ever see them.
Okay.
So, don't think, oh my gosh, I'm in California, I can't get to Connecticut. That is, you don't have to, because they're able to do all the testing with urine samples. Okay. So all you have to do is, a kit will be sent to you. You then send the kit back to them, and they do the testing, and then everything's done, teleconference or Skype, whatever works best for both. But the great thing is that your location should not be a detriment to applying for the program.
Well, I think it's a remarkable program, Amy. And I imagine that you do fundraisers from time to time to help raise the funds to be able to do this?
We will, yes.
Okay. Well, you let us know, because we'd like to cover your fundraisers and participate and support, because I think what you're doing is really important and critical, and I think it's a great way to pay it forward.
Yep. We're, like I said, I think of everything I'm doing, I'm most looking forward to just seeing, as we all do, when we have an impact on a family and their child, and just see how the child becomes the child we always knew they could be.
Yeah.
And we were able to kind of help them in that journey. I mean, that's the payback for me.
Well, it's remarkable. I'll remind everybody to go to wellamy.com. When you go to wellamy.com, you can see, if you scroll down to the bottom of the pages, you can see where the link is for Amy's Wishing Well. But while you're there on Well Amy, shop around and see some of the great products that are available that you can order. Amy, thank you so much for being with us, and we'll definitely have to have you back on to hear more about how it's going with Amy's Wishing Well.
Great. Thanks so much.